Live from Radio Road, Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. I'm Roy Kessel with Sports Philanthropy Network, and we are very excited to have with us today Joanne Pasternack. Joanne has recently been brought in as the executive director of Laureus, so we're so excited to have you join us in this new capacity. I know we've done stuff for many years together, so thank you for taking the time and being here.
Well, Roy, you're the epitome of what Laureus stands for with the Sports Philanthropy Network. So I always love talking to you, but I'm even more excited now that I'm in this new role.
So I know it's been a hectic week. You get pulled a lot of directions. Tell us about the event you hosted the other night.
So Laureus is committed to creating more impact and visibility around sport for good and how sport can have the power to connect, power to influence, power to create. Sorry, should we have them switch over? Because that's great. They're just super, they're really loud. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to stop that. Okay, thank you. We're not live. so, um, joining up with Laureus has been really amazing. We had an event the other day that was focused on our mission to connect youth and use sports as a tool to create those deeper level connections. So we were at a school just down the street here in New Orleans with 200 kids, boys and girls, partnered up with some great companies like Dove and Gatorade to talk about how sports could have the power to help kids stay confident and stay connected. So we did that. We had a reception. We just were having a lot of fun. So I've been in the job a month and I feel like I'm already an old timer with it.
Well, you've been in this space for many, many years, right? You've been working with Laureus and from the other side in
Hmm.
various different capacities. So I know you're just getting enmeshed and catching your breath in terms of what you want to happen, but I'm sure it's something that you've already started giving a lot of thought to. So what are you able to share when you look ahead now for the next 1 to 3 years for your plans?
Well, a number of years ago, Laureus looked at this concept of having 20 sport for good cities in the US by the year 2020. We took a big step back and thought about it more rationally, and fortunately had decided at that time that we would go city by city based off of impact, need, connections, and the potential to really grow something. 2020 hit, we all know what happened, and we were very fortunate to have four really strong cities that we have continued to work with. We have programs in New Orleans, Atlanta, Chicago, and New York. Those are central areas for us, but we're looking to expand into 3 to 5 additional cities, and then also to re-examine how we partner with organizations that are doing great work within the cities that we aren't in to help increase our reach and our impact.
Well, one of the things that I've always admired with Laureus is it's really that whole SBYD space and the ability to support that in a sort of a combined, collaborative fashion. One of the things that you and I have spoken about many times over the years is how many different nonprofits are sort of pulling in different directions
Yeah,
instead of collaborating. A dollar for Joanne is a dollar less for Roy. Instead of
right.
putting our heads together and that's going to be 100 or 1,000 or 100,000 or $100 million that
Mhm.
we can work on collectively. And so talk about that collective impact
Sure.
model.
I mean, really, that's why I'm here this week. It isn't about Laureus specifically, but it's about all the people who are here this week and all the connections that we can make. I just came from an event that was at the Sports Illustrated House. They're relaunching an issue of Sports Illustrated focused on girls and getting girls more involved in sport. And while I was there, I had a chance to speak with our friends at Positive Coaching Alliance, at Kickoff for Kids, I mean, there's so many organizations, Girls on the Run. And what we were talking about was what can we do together to make the impact bigger? And how can we collaborate, not how can we be seen as individual entities?
So I think one of the things, when you talk about collaboratively, like you said, lawyers wanted to have 20 cities going, right? That's a big undertaking because we know what a sizable investment
Mhm.
Laureus makes in each of those cities in
Yeah.
terms of staffing, in terms of resources. Do you have additional cities that you've identified already, or that's still in the works?
Well, one of the fun parts is I get to go visit some great places and great people. So we're looking at cities where there is a confluence of underserved youth, a lack of funding for in-school athletic participation and after-school athletic participation, cities where we have some great professional sports teams who are excited to partner with us, and then really just looking at the areas of greatest need. So while we had identified a number of cities where that would be true, we are going around this year and we'll be visiting a lot of places, taking a lot of notes. And I would say this time next year, Roy, you can ask me which cities we've expanded into, and I'm sure I will have a couple of places to share with you.
And I know it's early in that process. Do you have a pace, so to speak, of how many cities per year you would like to start adding?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm doing an all staff retreat in a month, and we're going to talk about why Laureus and why not Laureus. Because the best nonprofits are ones that know when they should refer to a different nonprofit. And in our case, I think we've been saying yes to just about everything, and it really bifurcates the impact. So instead of doing that, we're going to take a step back. We're going to look at it. We're going to figure out what model makes the most sense. And for some, it might be a satellite site for us. Others, we may have a full staff there, but we need to evaluate that one by one. So I wish I could put a number out there because, of course, we measure impact in numbers sometimes, but I'm going to look at it a little differently and look at how we're going to be able to make a difference and who our partners will be.
And that's critical because we see so often, right? We talk about the mentality oftentimes in the funder world
Hmm.
of giving people a fish instead of teaching them to fish. And so much
Sure.
of the time, it's like, here we're going to give you a grant of $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, none of which are sustaining level
Mm.
gifts for truly operating
Correct.
organizations. They're certainly not transformational level gifts, and so that impact gets diluted because you can fund a lot of $5,000
Hmm.
grants, but when you try and measure what that impact is, it's like, okay, well, we got people to fill out forms and submit surveys, but
What does
when
that
you turn
mean?
around, like what lives are we
Yeah.
changing? What
Yeah.
impact are we making?
Well, and that's part of what Laureus needs to really evaluate is why are we doing what we're doing and how are we doing it? So I and I, Roy, you and I have known each other for so long. You know my philosophy on this, but it's not about talking about the numbers. It's about digging deeper into the impact. But again, what can Laureus uniquely do? One of our incredible strengths is our awareness within the professional athlete community. So we have global ambassadors who are, if you think of a sport, the number one named person in that sport is part of our ecosystem, and we are looking at better ways to activate them because when we have an athlete who has visibility and a following amplifying around a message, we know that kids listen, adults listen, it connects people, and in the words of our founder, sport has the power, Nelson Mandela, sport has the power to connect and to build bridges in a way that almost nothing else does. So
Well, and for everybody that's followed, obviously, the Nelson Mandela thing, I mean, the whole dismantling of apartheid came because of the way he used sports. So, with parents that are from South Africa, that's super meaningful to me to see the way that he was able to rally, both sides of the
mhm,
equation in South Africa, both the black community, the white community, and bring people together to support the same
yeah.
sports teams, and then start opening that dialogue. And I think it's so important. You talked about identifying the cities, right? The challenge you're going to have is not to find cities that need those elements that you listed.
Correct.
It's going to be to prioritize like which ones are most desperate for this, because
Yeah.
some cities have more infrastructure in place and other cities are really desperate.
Well, and it's interesting because we want to land in a city where there is some infrastructure in place that can create sustainability around the program. But if there is an individual who is really motivated, uh, for example, one of our athletes who comes from a particular city and really wants us to come in there and they're going to shepherd it through, we know that we have a higher likelihood of success. The other thing, and again, we were talking this morning to Dove and to Gatorade. They partnered with us on our event the other day, and Dove is so committed to body positivity and really creating not just awareness, but actually giving girls the tools to continue to do sports. So some of the conversations we're having are with organizations like Dove and saying, where do you see a great need and where can we work together to bring funds, to bring visibility, and to bring programming? And when you have that trifecta, then you actually have something that can last. So we're not interested in just putting a little flag down and saying like, hi, we're here.
Well, and that's one of the things I've always respected about Laureus. When we look around the universe of organizations that are trying to make a difference,
Hmm.
too many of them, as I say, are sort of window dressing philanthropy of,
Hmm.
hey, we created a great event. It's a great photo op. We paraded out some kids. We paraded out some soccer balls or
Yeah.
basketballs. and then you like dig into the impact and you look at what really is going on behind the scenes, and it's not that much. And so when we talk about changing lives and transforming communities, it really takes a much deeper level commitment.
Yes, and I think about our leave behinds all the time. You know, you can give them the little knapsack and like, here you go, here's some swag. The other day at this event, we were partnering again with Dove, but we gave away jog bras, sports bras for girls. And it is such an important piece of equipment that is overlooked. You can give them t-shirts, you can give them shorts, but if they don't feel comfortable in their body, then they're not going to participate. So that was part of our, I guess, our perspective going into it was what can we give them that they're going to use? The other thing we looked at was hydration and education around that. So, what does it mean to step out onto a field and be able to perform your best because you've fueled your body in a certain way? And again, when we're talking about girls in particular, there is so much insecurity, uncertainty as they move through their preteen into their teenage years. And then they get to be like me in the ripe old age of 50. And we
Still
have
a youngster,
different
still a
insecurities,
youngster.
but I feel like it's so amazing to be able to step in and say to these girls, like, we've got your back, we're here with you, and we're going to keep staying with you. We're going to see what your future holds and build it
Well,
together.
it's interesting you mentioned sports bras because we've done work with Sarah Dreier Schick with the Sports Bra Project, and
Yeah.
done collection drives with her at some of our events. And it's, as you said, it's such an underrated piece of equipment
Mhm.
that people don't think about, right?
Yeah.
And in markets where people barely have enough to eat or basic clothing, it's something that's like, you don't really need that.
Hmm.
But it makes such a difference, as you said, in that body positivity
Yeah.
in terms of being comfortable. Like, I can be out there, I can compete, I'm important, I'm worth it.
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting, you know, and I know you put quotes around equipment. Like I want it to be thought of as equipment because it is,
Right.
because it's as essential as a good pair of cleats or, you know, a helmet when you're playing catch. You know, you just need to put the right equipment in place, give the girls a chance. But one of the things that we did at our event the other day was we weren't just differentiating, here are the girl goodie bags and the boy goodie bags. We just had goodie bags. So everybody went home with stuff. And somebody asked at the beginning, well, are we putting these sports bras in the bags for the boys too? And I looked and I said, well, they all have sisters, cousins, moms,
Friends.
friends. Let's destigmatize it. Here's the equipment I just got at this event the other day. I'm passing it on to you because it's more useful for you.
Well,
So we're looking at what are the essential needs and how do we build bridges to be able to provide them, and then raise awareness to destigmatize what it means to ask for help.
and it's interesting. We've had several conversations with groups about mental health over
Mhm.
the course of the week. And one of the big points on that is that ability to be transparent, open up, ask for help, but also to have people on the other side, right? Like people in the room, people on your team that are comfortable recognizing that, hey,
Mhm.
I see something going on with Joanne. I need to be able to talk to her. I need to feel comfortable
Yeah.
asking you if you are okay or what I can do to help, because many times people are like, "Ah, it's none of my business."
No, that's well put. And another woman we've brought into the mix at Laureus, who's a longtime friend and collaborator for me, is Dr. Jem Welter. She was at our camp the other day, and she brought with her 200 Barbie dolls. There was a If You Can See Her, You Can Be Her initiative with Mattel, where they were looking at careers for girls and specifically careers for girls to aspire to in sports. And there's a coach, Jen Barbie. So when you saw these girls, and these were teenagers and pre-teenagers, and they're opening up these bags and they're looking at the Barbie in their hand and they're like, this is so cool. Look, she's a boxer, she's a football player, she's a tennis player. Um, and we were watching them laugh and connect over that. And then Jen jumps into the mix and she's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I thought, gosh, I wonder how many times they've been asked that and how many times they've been challenged with what they say they want to be when they grow up, and how can we support them?
Well, and it is, you've met Kayla many times. She tells the story in high school about how she wanted to be either an engineer or in media, and she was told, "Hey, Kayla, those aren't good careers for a girl," right? And so it's changed. It's continuing to evolve, but we're never far enough. We need to make sure that that message is really clear. That girls and women have that option.
Sure.
That things aren't perceived as like a dead end role, as they're going through it. There's so many opportunities. We look around Radio Row this whole week. We look around everything that goes on in the Super Bowl, right? Every possible career you can think of is represented in this room.
Mhm.
And so if you want to be involved in sports and you want to be active, there's certainly a way to make that happen.
Yes, and I was really proud of the NFL this week, the announcement that they made around their commitment to diversity and hiring from non-traditional sources, partnership with HBCUs, historically black colleges, universities. Um, they're taking a stand that I think is incredibly important and essential to building our future workforce. We know that if we don't build that confidence in people, that they can lead, that we're going to end up with a pretty monochromatic leadership table, which won't do any of us any good. And if we can learn anything from Nelson Mandela, it's that we have to break down the barriers, and we're always going to be stronger when we look at what people's skills are versus whether we feel like they fit into our country club.
Well, Joanne, thank you so much for taking the time to come on with us today. Always value your partnership and your collaboration. Look forward to having Laureus as part of Sports Philanthropy World in June in Chicago.
Looking forward.
And good luck for the rest of the week.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And for all of our viewers and listeners, this is Roy Kessel signing off for Sports Philanthropy Network, live from Radio Row at Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. Please remember to live generously.